So let me begin by saying, while this is something that I think should be avoided as a counselor, this is something that I tend to do so often. So when I'm talking to people, my way of relating to them is by saying, oh yeah, me too, like this one time, blah, blah, blah. So this is definitely something that I think as a counselor, I'm going to have to be very intentional about avoiding. But with that little disclaimer being said, I don't think it's something that we should rely on heavily as a counselor. Made a list of different reasons why I don't think it's a great idea to self-disclose and why I don't think it's a good idea. Sorry, just reviewing my list. I would think, and this is speaking personally, I often do it if there's an awkward silence. So I think as a beginning counselor, we might tend to use self-disclosure as a way to fill the silence, to avoid the awkwardness. But I do believe that the silence can be instrumental in the client having time to reflect on their feelings and having time to maybe process something that you've said. And so it does more harm than it does good by filling that silence with a self-disclosure, because then all of a sudden the attention is taken off of something that was just said that could potentially benefit them, and instead they're thinking about something that you just said. And the shift has been taken from them to you. I also think just overall it's better safe than sorry to not self-disclose. I think that there maybe are some benefits to it, but I don't think that it's a necessary technique to build trust. I think that trust can be built by just showing good listening skills, by being empathetic and by being genuine, and by just creating a safe environment for the client. I also made a note that said they came to counseling, not coffee. So they are paying you to hear your advice and to be listened to by a professional, but they didn't pay to hear about your life. And so I think while, like I said, there might be times where self-disclosure could be beneficial, I think more times than not, it's taking the shift off of the client and it's putting it onto ourselves. Just like the author said in the book, if it feels good, then you shouldn't do it. And I think more times than not, at least for myself, I would tend to use self-disclosure as a means to vent. And we don't want to be venting to our clients. I also think we could tend to accidentally try and one-up the client. So if the client is talking about a really bad breakup that they're experiencing, and then we say like, oh yeah, I get that, I've been there, this one time, blah, 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 we can make them not feel justified if they feel as if their story isn't as intense as ours was, or if we had a greater reason to be angry in our situation, and so all of a sudden they feel silly for being angry in their situation. I don't know, I just think we could easily create a competition between ourselves and the clients where we're trying to one-up each other. Originally, when I was trying to think of pros of self-disclosure, I thought, well, what if the client was unwilling to share something about themselves and they were feeling shameful about something that they did? And so as a counselor, we said, I've really been struggling with this, or there was this time that I really messed up and I did XYZ. Well, what if the client hears that and thinks, oh, well, if they think that's bad, I couldn't imagine what they would think about me. And then all of a sudden, our self-disclosure hasn't in fact created a trusting environment, it's just made them feel even more at risk of being judged. So when I was trying to think about, so when is self-disclosure beneficial? I decided that the only time that I felt that self-disclosure would be beneficial is the use of immediacy, which the book says would be sharing with the client our immediate response to something they said and how it made us feel. And we don't do this as a means to just be heard, but we do it because we feel like the client, by knowing how we feel in that moment, they could benefit from it. For example, because I want to be specific, if they are struggling with self-esteem and they're struggling with not feeling valued or not feeling adequate, or that they have the ability to carry on a conversation, for example. We can say, you're saying this, but I feel like we're able to carry on a great conversation. And so, in that moment, your self disclosure, your immediacy has established a little bit of self esteem for the client. I think that could be really beneficial to them. Another example, if you feel like they just are continually meeting after meeting, they're not being genuine, or they're kind of putting up a front, and you tell them, I'm having a hard time building a trusting relationship with you because I feel as if you're not being genuine with me. While that is somewhat confrontational, I think that immediacy makes them aware that this front that they're putting on, other people can see through that. And so, like I said, that is sort of confrontational, but I do think that it could pull them out of that act and maybe really encourage them to be real. So, all in all, I don't think self disclosure is a great idea. Like I said, I do think there are very limited um, situations that it could be a good idea. Um, but overall, I think it's something that should be used tastefully, very rarely, and very intentionally. And it's something that I will have to work very hard to avoid doing. Thank you so much.